Hello and welcome to this edition of Defacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight is economist and commentator, Jarl Defacto, and I'm Terrence Edwards. We're live on Facebook at VTelevision. We want to hear your thoughts, so send us your comments on Facebook at television with hashtag Jargle_Defacto. Coming up on the program, Mongolia's People Party prepares to choose new leadership. Economic bailout payment delayed as IMF waits for new government. 14 exploration licenses suspended at protected land reserves. Artisans plan to break world record with secret historical tale painted on felt. Our first story. The Mongolian People's Party is gearing up to choose new leadership for the government and its party this month after the dismissal of former Prime Minister Jarltolga Erdenbat last week. Party officials will meet on September 25th to nominate a new Prime Minister, the majority leader in parliament for the Mongolian People's Party announced on Friday. The next Prime Minister is expected to be one of the contenders currently vying for a party leadership position. Erdenbat was dismissed at a special session of parliament under allegations of corruption and incompetence. The new government has until October 6th to choose the next prime minister. So, getting right on to things, who do you think are the main candidates likely for the job?
Well, not clear or official statements are there, but Mr. Nyam Dorj, Mr. Hurizuk, Mr. Inkbold, three of them are all parliament members.
So one is the deputy prime minister, yes, who resigned.
Yes.
And one is
deputy speaker.
Deputy speaker.
And Mr. Inkbold, he's a well-known politician. He was a former foreign minister.
Okay.
A well-respected official among the political, his colleagues inside of the political party.
And if you're just confused out there, Inkbold is a common name, not to be confused with the Parliament Speaker.
Yes. So now, next Monday, a week after, on 25th, they will have their conference of small hurral of their political party.
Sure.
And by that day, they have to, the People's Party have to agree for the Prime Minister, who most probably will be elected as a head of a political party in their Congress, announced to be within 45 days after the announcement, according to their rule. So next week, 8 days from now, it's a very important date for Mongolia because they will nominate the new prime minister of the country. But now the issue is remaining how to make sure that that cabinet is remaining until the next elections.
Yeah. So
for that questions, I think two conditions are necessary. First, Prime Minister is to be the parliament member out of these three persons we talk about. But the ministers, if they are not parliament members,
yeah,
that will be a more stable cabinet because the problem with the Mongolian politicians, parliament members, is that each of them want to be a minister.
Yeah.
So because that dream, they keep changing, replacing, keep cooking, all this thing. At the end, we pay for that in stable government.
Yeah, Mongolia's had a rocky history with this. It hasn't had a prime minister complete a full 4-year term since 2004, and that was former prime minister and president Nimrod Enkbir.
Yep, that's why if the parliamentarians are focused on their making legislations, I think we would expect to have more quality laws, which will be easier to enforce at the end. First condition. Second condition is the prime minister is to be a head of the ruling party for keeping that government stable, because then he can, the prime minister, who is also a head of the ruling party, can focus or refocus everything, whatever this political party has,
yeah,
can afford to the issues of execution of the decisions.
Yeah, because if you look at recent history, the last two prime ministers have not been the party leaders, with the case of Mr. Miyagam Enkbolt and Sendahu Enkbolt, no relation, from the Mongolian People's Party and the Democratic Party. There was a division between the executive, the prime minister, and then the parliament speaker.
The other thing, why Mongolian government is not stable, there is a very simple question is coming. Where are those leaders in the ruling party so that the other people are following unconditionally? There are not such a leaders. It's also because, to me, it's because there is no internal democracy inside of the political party, first. It's because also the financing is not clear.
Yes.
So
where does the campaign money come from?
The source of those money is only known to the head of the political party, and nobody even fully knows where the money comes. So this structure does not provide the conditions to be stable for that institutions, first. Second, who is the leader? The leader is somebody who can impact on the way the members, the people think or act. And for that, that person has to have integrity of what they talk and what they do, which is not the case in Mongolia. In case of, consistently for many governments, this is the case. Unfortunately, we don't have very clear, clear form of leader in the society, in these institutions.
It's definitely something to look towards, because in the last two, as I just mentioned, there was a split between the parliament and the prime minister because of factions agreements between each other. But unfortunately, this meant that the parties and the legislature and the executive weren't even aligned in any sense.
Yeah, and I also think there are several issues that Mongolian public is waiting from the new government.
Yeah.
To inform the public the issues like what exactly happened with 49% of Erdenet, how it come in such a way that Mongolian top officials are connected, but the people don't know anything about that. And in particular, the story about the bank collecting money in different ways from the
Trade and Development Bank,
saving accounts of people.
Yeah, this was an investigation done by Parliament, which was hardly impartial.
Yeah, and that issue is missing. We don't know very clear, true picture about what exactly happened. Nobody is held responsible for that. Second question is about the assassinations of Zöricht, parliament member Zöricht, and we know that there are 3 people who have now serving their prison terms as a murder, but we don't know who had ordered.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about the popular democratic leader that was assassinated in 1996, I believe.
And yet the government, Mongolian state, does not even bother to inform Mongolians who had ordered to kill him. The second question. Third question is, remember about the 60 billion Tugriks sales of public high-ranking positions. And
alleged accusations.
Yeah, it is disappearing.
Yeah.
And now the question is, the guy who made this whistleblowing, Tortsodov, either he is to be blamed for saying not truth.
Yeah.
Now the fourth question is, the ruling party, prime minister and deputy prime minister, they are blamed for listening or spying after each other.
Yes.
We don't know is it true or not, but they don't inform us. So there are 4 at least questions that Mongolian public is waiting for answer from the state, whoever is coming as a prime minister.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning, these were the accusations that have led to the resignation of the prime minister, but they don't even bother to open an investigation.
Exactly.
That's questionable.
That's why if they don't bother investigating all these issues, then still the next government, we are not sure how long and how stable will be that government without answering this sort of questions.
Yeah. So, with the next prime minister, he has a heavy burden on his shoulder. What do you think should it be his priorities?
Of course, this is again the issue of foreign debt, upcoming foreign debt payment.
January 2018.
Chinks bond, $500 million US dollar,
Yeah.
and Dim Sim bond, around $160 million US dollar. And we don't have $660 million US dollar to pay one day in January. So it's a matter of restructuring of this debt. It's a matter of issuing new debt, like last time we made with the Horaltai bond.
Yeah.
And now we're going to make another bond, but if we don't have a cabinet, who will do that?
Yeah.
So we may lose time because it takes several months to make a roadshow, to announce it, to make a roadshow, to attract investment. So we may be late, and if we default, it's a bigger problem than even the cabinet.
Yeah. Well, the Mongolian government may be solving its political problems, but there are definitely some economic consequences to the change in government. The International Monetary Fund will delay a payout on bailout funds after the dismissal of the Prime Minister and Cabinet in a parliamentary no-confidence vote last week, the fund said on Thursday. The IMF office in Mongolia confirmed that they would have been the first review of the $5.5 billion bailout package would now be delayed until a new administration is formed. That review had been expected to result in the disbursement of about $37.82 million US dollars of the funds. IMF resident representative Neil Saker told Reuters that talks about how to move forward would begin once a new government was in place. Okay, so out of the frying pan and into the flame. Did the parliament make a mistake in the timing of the Erdenbat's dismissal?
Of course, we would ideally should have at least a stable cabinet to go in the line of what we have agreed with the IMF. And it's logically correct that IMF had delayed because we have just stopped the way what we were doing.
Yeah, so they'll need another commitment at the very least.
At the very least. And we are now expecting also a new finance minister who is the key person for that contract. And it's a huge money, $660 million. And it is not, remember that $5.5 billion US dollar, the total loan, is soft loan coming to Mongolia.
Yeah.
Many of them is already to particular projects. The design is for particular projects. And I don't think there is a particular special provision to pay that $660 million US dollars.
Yeah.
But this money, coming money, should give confidence to the investors of Mongolian bonds that Mongolia can pay this amount if we follow that extended fund facility agreement with IMF, which is becoming not very clear now. At least we don't have who will implement it now.
Yeah.
So we are waiting for that. And it is not only a matter of just paying that foreign debt, because we are just extending the debt with longer term debt and with more expensive debt. Now, as you see, with the resignation of Mongolian cabinet, our bond fell down. The price is
trading
expensive.
Price. Yeah.
So that means how the market is reacting on what's going on in Mongolia. So this is not good. And with this difficult circumstances for the cabinet, it is not the only issue of paying the debt, but making sure that the economy is getting more competitive, more diversified.
Yeah.
And nothing is done in that directions, and many things now kept hold because the cabinet is not there. The plan, we don't know whether the next prime minister will continue or not. This what have done.
Yeah.
So only hope that it is within one ruling party. Probably they will continue.
Yeah.
But however, many things now kept hold. That's the
yeah. It's definitely will have some impacts on the IMF. It's definitely going to have delays in other areas too. When there's new ministers put in, there's usually a new regime in the ministry as well. All this creates delays for business and government.
And plus, usually when the change of prime minister and cabinet, we tend to have very bad habit of restructuring whole government.
Yeah.
Ministries will be restructured, renamed.
Yeah.
And then that means the staff will be changed.
You can
So-
sometimes see 50% turnover just in the ministries.
Exactly, and the people will leave,
Yeah.
and new people are coming in while we are waiting for them to adapt, to be adapted to the new
Yeah.
conditions. Takes a year usually, so it's very unfortunate in that sense.
Yeah, and that's not even counting the countless agencies. It has such wide impact. So it's definitely something to keep our eye on. Moving forward, government has suspended 14 mining licenses at protected land reserves. The Mineral Resources Authority last week received orders to suspend licenses located on reserved lands, but the action may come at odds with the government's agenda to protect investments. About 750,000 hectares of land is protected at the Tosung Bomb and Noyen Ol mountain ranges. So, was this another example of government acting too quickly, or are there legitimate environmental concerns here? Why is this happening now, especially as we have an outgoing prime minister?
You know, canceling mining licenses are always problematic because, in particular, when the country needs foreign direct investment, the cabinet is canceling certain licenses. In particular, in such areas, Tuwaimak, Bornur Som, South Gobi Aimak, Tost Som,
Yeah.
Noyung Ol, that has to do with now Centura Gold, Boro Gold,
Yeah.
and all this together, government should present very clear report on what is the reason.
Yeah. There was so little information about this, it's hard to make heads or tails of it.
You know, the problem is now in those areas, in particular, the nearby this Noyung Ol Som,
Yeah.
there are already ninja miners are there.
Yeah.
So if it is really protected, then why they would be mining gold now?
Yeah.
And the public, we have seen just once on one of the TV channels how they are mining gold in that artisanal way.
Yeah. And these are people without following any safety regulations, they're not following any environmental concerns, and you really can't expect any land rehabilitation after the fact.
Now the concern of public is, under the name of cancellations, there are at times lobby of these people who are interested to have these ninja miners.
Yeah.
You know, who are they? These people, unfortunately, the government somehow is not giving us a report. Because wherever these artisanal miners, ninja miners, at night, somebody is coming and buying old golds with cash.
Yeah.
Who are these people? Are they paying taxes? What happens, half of the gold the country is producing every year, about 30 tons of gold approximately. But less than 1/3, or sometimes just 1/3, comes to bank, central bank, Mongol bank. What is happening with the rest? This is just such a big gray economy. And the government yet is not talking about that. They are smuggling this gold. And there were several customs report for last few years that there were several cases where they were taking the gold under the car to China.
Yeah.
And
Smuggling.
now suddenly there are no report on that. We are surprised. What's happening? And so that's a big issue. And the second issue is Mrs. Oyung Horol, Minister of Environment. She said that, we have received so many complaints from local people about being destroyed, the pasture land being destroyed, soils are completely destroyed, etc. That's why they are canceling some licenses, they say.
Yeah.
But the issue is, why these local people are complaining? Because they are not receiving anything from the mining on their territory. Why? Because the royalty, the 5% of whatever you produce, part of it should go to the local people.
Yeah, and under current regime, it just goes straight to the federal government.
Always, and they never
Central.
stays back. As a result, local
Yeah.
people are getting unhappy, of course. Why they should be happy if they are not receiving anything for that? Even there's those things they are supposed or entitled to receive.
Yeah.
So we don't see any government report on that, how much they are receiving. Actually, they are not receiving, they are not giving. And we don't have enough civic society to make a noise around that. And civic society has not enough database to go after that royalty coming to or not coming to the local people. So that's the concern.
Do you expect any of these companies to go forward, protest the decision, maybe in court?
Some of them, of course, yes, because you just stop their business plan. You should have very clear reason or information. The other thing is, the other thing why people are complaining is there are not much renewal of or recovery after mining happening in the sites. Why? When they start to produce, they give certain money to the account of Ministry of Environment. They should keep it, and they should give back after whatever years for recovery of the mines, which is not the case. They say now that we don't have money. What is happening with this account? Who is going to make a report, public report on the money that is paid by mining companies to that account so that they can use for recovery?
Yeah.
So this is also a blank field, and that people want to know about that.
So, like I said, there's not a lot of information that's coming from the government out of this, but I do imagine if there's no compensation to these companies, this will be a long-lasting problem. Not so different from a couple of years ago when more than 100 licenses were suspended overnight because of a legal case.
And remember the case of Hang Investment, a Canadian company, where licenses were also cancelled, and then they have sued the Mongolian government. At the end, government has paid about 70 or so million US dollars for
the Han Resources.
Han Resources, yes. So I think this sort of things are going to happen now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that cost Mongolia quite a bit.
Yep.
For our final story, a story on felt. The ancient tome that historians say was dictated by 13th century conqueror Chinggis Khan, The Secret History of the Mongols, is part of a new art project that could set a new world record. The historical document was printed on 100 meters of felt, a traditional Mongol craft made with sheep's wool, and was on display last week at Sukbatar Square. The artist behind the project, Di Nergui, said that it would be registered with the Guinness Book of World Records for a chance to be named the largest piece of art made with raw animal products. The embroidery tells the story of the life of Chinggis Khan and the history and tradition of Mongolians in the 13th century. Over 5,000 craftsmen from all of Mongolia's 21 provinces, as well as China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region, participated in its creation. So what do you think about this, and have you gotten a chance to see it yourself?
This is fantastic work, first of all. And I saw it not myself, but on the TV screen in the very details. And I was impressed with the details of the work, embroidery. And I think it is a part of larger monumental kind of exhibitions that the Khinti Aymak, where Chinggis Khan was born, have a big ambition to attract foreign tourists, or also domestic tourists, to their sites where Chinggis Khan was born. And the capital city of Khinti Aymak is now called the Chinggis Khan City. And the Tatal Sumong, where Chinggis was entitled to the Great Khan, this area will be a big, large garden, and one of the attractions to be there is this felt embroidery.
Yeah.
So embroidery, and it's good because Mongolia has, Inner Mongolia, for example, has a lot the sort of things they have created, and they are attracting 20 to 30 million mostly domestic tourists to these locations. In Mongolia, I think it's a good start. But the other thing is we need not only to see what tourists come to see, but also there should be good services, restaurants where people can relax, we can buy gifts. That's what is missing a lot in our Mongolian touristic sites. And hopefully with that big felt and other attractions, we will have a normal international sort of tourism attraction center around this big name, big history. Finally, we have something that people are attracted.
Yeah, it would be nice if this could actually get a little bit of attention for Mongolia in two areas. Of course, there's tourism, but, a lot of people make their living making these felt crafts, so maybe people would be interested in purchasing them for themselves.
Yeah, a small part of that embroidery. And also, Mongolian domestic tourism or Mongolian tourism has to do a lot with the transportations. We don't have that much frequent domestic flights, and our international flights are so expensive that it's very hard to make a kind of tour package. Okay? Now, this sort of things, maybe products can be good for new products, but still a lot logistics Mongolia as a country to take care of to attract tourism, which can be one of the very competitive industry in Mongolia.
Okay, well, that's our show tonight. We hope our briefings this evening will give you a leg up as you enter the new work week. Any final thoughts, Jargo?
Well, thank you for listening or watching us. We try to make a weekly independent review about most important events in the country, three or four events. Please join us also on our website. Thank you.
Good night, Ulaanbaatar.